Sitting in this box is one of the coolest pieces of technology probably that I've interacted with in a long time, and one that I'm very excited to do. So I'm in the middle of moving right now, but I need to open this up. I figured I would just grab some quick footage and show you what's inside and show you why I'm excited and what I'm planning on doing with it. So inside this box is a Framework 13. Now, I know that the Framework 13 Pro is just coming out. It's going out for the first few sets of pre-orders, but if I'm being honest with you, it was a lot out of my price range, and I think the 13 in this config that I've got will serve the purposes that I need for a long time. But the beauty of Framework is that I can upgrade later on if I need to for a lot cheaper than buying a new laptop. So I'm gonna kind of just ramble about why I made this purchase and what I'm kind of planning on doing with it. I got a DIY kit, so I'll have a bunch of pieces here to unbox. So for those of you who don't know about Framework, they're a pretty niche boutique laptop manufacturer who recently in the last several years have put some work into creating a basically fully modular and upgradable laptop, which has never really been done before. And this is their DIY kit, so I'm gonna be pulling out all of the different individual pieces and then assembling it while I'm kind of just rambling here and giving my first impressions. I am very, very excited to see the Framework in all of its glory. So I bought this laptop because I believe in Framework's mission. So the idea of having upgradable technology has always been something that I've enjoyed, especially from kind of the eco-friendly way that Framework does it. They use a lot of recycled materials. They make everything backwards and forward compatible within their product SKUs. It's all just really, really awesome. So I'm excited to support their mission a little bit, but also just have a mostly top of the line laptop that I can do for school, which is the primary reason that I got a new laptop right now, is because I'm about to start my graduate program in data science here in a few weeks. And I was originally gonna use a MacBook Air M1, so from 2020, and it just wasn't quite enough for what I needed to do. So I got a Framework 13. I got the Ryzen AI 7350, I think is what it's called, config, with a 2.8K display that has the higher refresh rate. So I'm excited to kind of leverage having a luxury laptop that is also kind of light and easy to take around places. And we'll see if I can put this together without needing any instructions or guides, because my phone is recording, so I don't really have a way to look up guides here. So there it is. This is a first look. Loving it. It's super well built. I like the aluminum. It's kind of smaller than I thought. I knew it was going to be 13 inches, but for some reason in my head it was a little bit larger. And actually, there's a piece here that I am missing. You'll notice, if you're particularly observant, I didn't pull out any RAM and I didn't pull out an SSD. Both of those I brought myself, so I'm going to go grab them really quick. Another reason why I went with the DIY kit beyond just I'd like to tinker and do things like that is because it lets you bring your own storage and your own memory. So I had an old Gen 3 M.2 SSD with some NAND flash actually in my Unraid server that was acting as the cache. So what I ended up doing is swapping in two SATA SSDs so I could have a mirrored cache and that I could use this for my Framework. It's only 512 gigabytes, but I have a pretty robust storage solution in my server. I'm not too concerned about my client machines having a ton of storage. And then I also have right here, two 8 gigabyte sticks of DDR5 5600 SODIMMs. So I was able to get these off of Marketplace for only $75, which if you've been keeping up with the current RAM shortage at all, you will know is an absolute steal. Saved myself hundreds of dollars by picking it up used instead of getting it from Framework. So let's dive in here and kind of see what is first on our list to do. I'm gonna open the laptop first, actually, because I wanna see what is inside. And there you go. In all of its glory, we've got the Framework 13. That is a beautiful, beautiful chassis. So you'll see right here that we have two M.2 slots, and then under these panels are where our two SODIMMs are gonna go. So in the event that, storage drops in price, because it's also crazy right now, I could just throw in a second drive in here and not have to reconfigure anything. But let's go ahead and just throw in that RAM and storage. But first, I need to find the included screwdriver to see if that truly can get us through the entire build. all that's in this box is the screwdriver because I didn't get any storage or RAM. Seems like a perfectly cromulent included screwdriver. So up first, we're gonna go ahead and slot in our RAM. One stick. Sorry, I guess I'll turn it around for the camera. I know this isn't a great angle, but I only have one camera, so I don't want to switch between overhead and just there, because again, we're in the middle of a move, all that stuff. But here goes our second stick of RAM. Just fold that back down. And then, actually I lied. Earlier I said there were 2 slots. There's only 1 slot right here. So I will have to get a new drive, but that is totally fine because hopefully by the time of drives dropping in price again, I will be able to afford a nicer one. So we're gonna start by taking out this M.2 screw. Again, I apologize if this is hard to kind of see. It's kind of impromptu and I don't have a great recording setup for this, but I'm just so excited about this laptop that I wanted to unbox it and put it together on camera to share it with you all. So there we go. RAM and SSD have been installed, which is super easy. I'm assuming basically what is left is just to throw in the input cover kit. So this is what has our keyboard and our keyboard and touchpad. That's what I'm looking for. I like that we've got all cardboard packaging here. I haven't seen a single piece of plastic so far, except for the plastic cover over the keyboard or over the motherboard area, which makes sense that that would have to be something a little bit more durable. So let's see here what this keyboard looks like. All of this wrap around the components are also some sort of paper instead of a plastic sheathing wrap, which is more and more common these days, but still, you do love to see it. And there is our keyboard in all of its glory. Go ahead and slap this bad boy on. Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to put this on backwards. It does look like there's a ribbon cable to connect it right here to connect it to the motherboard. And then I believe it's just magnets that stick it on, but I guess we'll find out here. And that's a snap-in ribbon connector, which is very nice. It's a lot better than some of the more finicky ones. And I believe that's it. That doesn't quite feel like it's all the way on there, but maybe the screws on the bottom will cinch that up a little bit. So I'll do those in a second. Actually, I'm gonna do them right now. We'll close it, flip it over, and we'll see all of these screws are captive. So it's what, 5 screws, 1 in each corner, and then 1 up here in the middle, all captive. And then on the back, we also get to see one of the cool parts of the framework. And Framework does this, I believe, with all of their laptop devices and even with their desktop devices, but they have these modules that kind of plug in, so you get to choose your own I/O. So I went with 2 USB-Cs, 1 HDMI, and then 1 USB-A. If I needed to get more in the future to be able to swap things out, I totally can do that in the future. These aren't too expensive, but for right now, this is the configuration I went with. But before putting those in, we're gonna go ahead and just cinch up the screws here on the bottom and see if that tightens the keyboard on the top. So I know the Framework 13 Pro just came out, but as I mentioned earlier, it's just a little cost prohibitive, I think, for a lot of people. And I think it's intended to be that way. It's got Pro in it. It's supposed to be their top model. Of course, it's gonna come at a bit of a premium. And although it would be nice to have like LP cam memory, and I really like how the new chassis looks and all of that stuff, it just didn't seem worth it for those features that I don't think would provide me with a significantly different fundamental laptop using experience. So let's see if that cinched up the top cover, and it sure did. Feels like it's on there all the way properly now. So now we get to get into another one of the fun parts. So this bezel here, which we don't usually think of bezels as fun, but one of the things I really like about the customizability of Framework and the options that they offer is that they offer some translucent, they offered these translucent in a bunch of different colors kind of accessories for them, so that I can just snap this on and I get this cool translucent black bezel. It looks like I might actually have to remove this top cover, put the bezel on first, and then put the keyboard back on because there's some restrictions here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I should just read the instructions. This is what I get. I love that all of these screws are captive. I don't have to get something out to hold them and remember where they go. Okay, now that I've got the keyboard off, let's see if I can get this bezel back on here. And it seems like it kind of just snaps into place. Again, I believe it uses magnets to stay in place. Everything looks good, so we'll throw the top cover back on and screw it all back up. And then boom, just like that. The last step is now to put in these expansion cards. For the AMD Ryzen AI second, third, whatever generation they're on, there are optimal slots to put the expansion cards in because they don't all have the same power consumption or something like that. Right now, they will all work in certain slots, but sometimes they work better in certain slots. And I have that diagram. I'll show it on screen. For now, just for testing purposes, I am just going to plug these in randomly so that I can get this charging and turned on. These little USB-C ones are also that cool translucent black. So with them all put in, kind of looks like that. It's a little bit of a patchwork vibe, but I, for one, like it. So now I'm gonna go get a charger now that I have these USB-C in here, and I am going to get it charging and then grab my boot device because we're not putting Windows on this. It didn't come with Windows. I'm gonna be using CachyOS. All right, I've got it plugged in here, so let's see if we can get it to boot up. And right there, we get our first boot. So I don't have an OS in here or a boot drive yet. I've got my boot drive right here. So this has a CachyOS ISO on it, and I'm gonna be trying that out. I've actually been using CachyOS for several months now with my main gaming desktop. I run it on there. I got kind of sick of Windows. I wanted to try out Linux, and I went with Linux Mint first. Then I had a bunch of problems with swap in some games where I think I had some sort of memory leak somewhere or something like that, probably user error, but it just wasn't as stable as I had hoped. And according to what a lot of people had told me about Mint, about it just working, I did not have that experience, but I decided to give CachyOS a try, and it has been great ever since. So I'm using CachyOS. Okay, so after a little bit of configuring and troubleshooting, I am able to boot into a live image of CachyOS, which, as I mentioned before, I've been running on my main desktop. The difference this time is that I'm gonna be using a different desktop environment. I'm gonna try out Gnome or Gnome, depending on who you are. So I'm gonna throw Gnome on here. I'm gonna do that really quick, go through the whole OS, install everything like that. So I'll see you here in a moment. All right, we are back. I've got my soda here and Gnome CachyOS installed here. So Gnome is a desktop environment. I have absolutely no experience with it. I use KDE Plasma currently on my desktop, but I've heard some good things about window tiling managers and stuff like that. And Gnome is pretty controversial, but I want to see how it would work. This is mostly a productivity focused machine. So I wanted to get a desktop environment that more people recommend for quote unquote workflows. So we'll see. You know, the internet's weird about recommending these things in the first place, and I don't really know who to trust. So that is why we are just giving it a shot. If it doesn't work and kind of sucks, I'll just swap out the desktop environment. It'll be great. First impressions of this desktop environment, this is not a Linux video. This will be the last thing that I say about it, is it looks very iPhone, and not a fan. I have an iPhone and I really dislike it. And it seems like this is a little more Mac OS oriented, which I also didn't like in my short time with it, but we'll see. I'll give it a good, honest shot. And if it really doesn't work out, then we will move on from there. But I did want to take this opportunity to talk a little bit. So I was able to get everything here up, installed. Everything is built. It's in there. It's working. I'll need to stress test it and kind of run some benchmarks maybe. But I know the first part of this video was a little bit scattered, but the real point of this video that I wanted to get around to is why I chose a Framework 13. So a lot of the other content on my channel is about servers and self-hosting, and that's definitely still gonna be a big part of the channel going forward, but I also want to promote brands and organizations that I enjoy and I think have a good mission. And I think Framework has a wonderful mission of breaking into the laptop market, making things open source, making things available to the community, making their parts available, making everything upgradable, making things backwards and forwards compatible. All of that stuff is super awesome. And in spite of doing all of that stuff, I have a very powerful 8-core machine here that was at a pretty reasonable price considering all of the difficulties of today's market. Granted, some of that is because I source some of my own parts, which again is part of the beauty of Framework and part of why I went with them. It's because I could source my own parts, I could save some money doing so, and that was what let me enter this platform. Now I call it a platform because another big reason that I went with the Framework is because I wanted to get a forever laptop. They've been around for several years now and still on their Framework 13 line, all of their chassis are still backward and forward compatible with new motherboards, with new CPUs, with new modules for IO, with new screens, with new everything basically. So my thought was, I'm gonna buy into this platform now at what again, I believe to be a fairly reasonable price. And in 3, 4, 5 years when I need to upgrade, what I can do is I still have a wonderful screen, I'll have a keyboard that still works, hopefully all of that stuff, and I can just get a new motherboard. And I can save myself a bunch of money because I'm not paying twice for the parts of this that are already good and that are still good and that have lasted me that long. And additionally, in case the keyboard breaks, in case the screen breaks, I have the option of affordably replacing those items myself. So I bought a Framework to be on the Framework platform so that I have upgradability in the future and I have repairability now. So I'm excited to see what the Framework 13 has to offer. And the last point that I'm going to go into here is that in the event that I do need a more powerful machine later on, so what I can do is I can purchase a new motherboard that has a newer CPU that meets the power requirements that I have, and then I can repurpose the old motherboard in here because it still works perfectly, and being able to power and interact with and connect to that motherboard has been made available to the community by Framework. So I have a few ideas. I'm already thinking about what to do with this motherboard when I'm done with it. And a few of my ideas are, I would love to turn it into a handheld gaming machine. There are tons of projects out there of 3D printing cases and accessories and things like that to turn a Framework laptop motherboard into a handheld gaming machine. The second idea I have is to just run it as a server. I can throw it in my 10-inch rack in some sort of 3D printed case or something like that, and I can have another node in my Proxmox network. I can have a different testing environment. I can run Home Assistant on it. I might be able to even just remotely stream games, something like that, where I can still keep it in use in a meaningful way. And the third idea I have is actually to turn it into a sort of TV box to replace the smart TV OSs that I'm kind of honestly getting kind of sick of. And that way I have a high power device where if I wanted to do a little bit of TV gaming, I can do some light indie games on that TV just directly from here. And for larger games, I can use like Sunshine and Moonlight to stream to this device, which will be powerful enough to decode and transcode and do all of the technical stuff that a client for those remote streaming services needs. That's why Framework. I want to be on the platform. I want to see all the cool things I can do with it in the future. And I hope in the long run that it's a more economical route than just buying cheaper laptops over that same period of time. So thank you so much for watching this video. I know it was a little bit scattered and trying to get this out before we move, and I'm just really excited about this laptop and I wanted to share my experience with it. If you're interested in how my experience goes with it throughout school, or if you're interested in my experience with Linux or want me to do any videos on that, please let me know in the description down below. I would love to dive into those topics, but thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, if you'd like to come along for this journey, maybe consider getting subscribed for more content like this and giving a like to this video. If you want something else to watch right now, maybe go check out this video I did on gluten. I spun it up in a Docker container to route the traffic of my other Docker containers through a VPN. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.